Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, is Brazil's reputation as a melting pot of race and ethnicity just a mirage? Last week, Malika, myself, the AJ Stream team had an open editorial, Chala Editorial, where we were looking for ideas from Latin America. And wow, did we get lots. Today's show is the end product of that open editorial. Malika?
Right, a nice little tease there. Well, Betty pitched an idea that had lots of great feedback online once it was out there. So take a look at what she had to say.
Brazil has this image of its racial democracy, but actually it's not. I mean, the whole Brazilian society is kind of built up on a long history of slavery and etc. And this racism is in the everyday life, still in the language of the people, is in our culture, is within the samba, the music, is in the carnival. So it costs us a lot. It will cost a lot for Brazilian society to actually challenge it. Their racism. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's not really challenged by main media outlets here.
So when you pitch us stories, we use them. So keep them coming with hashtag AJStream.
My name is Mauricio Savarese. I am a Brazilian blogger and I am on the stream.
To many outside of Brazil, the nation has a reputation of being a racial democracy. But what's really happening once you scratch the surface? Black Brazilians represent half the population, but they also earn about 60% of what their white counterparts earn. On average, they have less schooling and make up 60% of the prison population. So on today's program, we'll take a look at racial inequality in Brazil, what makes it unique and how does it play out in everyday life. So to help us do this, joining me in Austin, Texas, we have Brazilian blogger Daniela Gomes. She is a PhD student of African Studies and the African diaspora. Also in Sao Paulo, we have Jamila Ribeiro. She is a blogger and a graduate student at Sao Paulo Federal University. And also in Sao Paulo, Nenis Vieira is a coordinator for Blogueiras Negras, or Black Women Bloggers. And from New York, we have Janice Perlman, who is a sociologist and president of the Mega Cities Project. She has spent more than 4 decades studying Brazil. So ladies, it is great to have you all here in the mix. Welcome. Talking about mix, Daniela, can you help us understand how Brazilians see color?
Yeah, this is really intense because to understand how Brazilians see colors, we need to understand the racial thought and how that was constructed in Brazil. So Brazil was the last country in the world to abolish slavery, to eliminate slavery. And as any other country, the mixed country in Brazil, mixed people in Brazil, it's a result majorly of the rapists of African women, as any other of the colonized countries in the world. What happens in Brazil is, in the end of the 19th century, when slavery finished, blackness was considered a shame in the country. So
because nobody wanted to be associated as a slave, Daniela?
No.
Nobody wanted to be a slave?
Nobody wanted to be associated with slavery or with blackness. Okay. And was opposite of modernity. So the intellectual thought of the country at that time is decided that blackness was what was making Brazil be late in the advancement of developed countries. This is in the 19th century. So the government decided motivate immigration, especially European immigration and Asian immigration too, to Brazil, paying those people to go to Brazil.
So paid white Europeans to come to Brazil to make Brazil less black. So it's an actual program. Did they say that out loud? Was it official?
That's on books. Yeah,
okay.
You can find that on records.
Right.
So the idea was to have those people in Brazil because they would start to mix it with Brazilians and become less black. It's important to say that the black population in Brazil, when the slavery finished, was already a majority in Brazil.
Right, so there were more black people than anything else in Brazil. That gives us a little insight there. So then, so bring us up to date then. So people obviously just after slavery weren't that keen on being associated with being black, although most of Brazil was black. So what about today? Like, we're fast forwarding just over 100 years since the end of slavery in Brazil.
Could I jump in there?
Yeah, what about today?
Could I
Go
jump
ahead.
in there?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
the
Go ahead. Please.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is that today, as far as I can see, almost every single Brazilian, no matter where they come from, has some mixture of white and black and maybe Indian and other kinds of heritage. So it's very difficult to say, when you say half the population is black or more, that's a sliding scale, because there are actually about 40 different racial categorizations that, counting on the skin color, the shape of your face, the shape of your nose, the width of your lip, the kind of hair, they have all kinds of designations, and where you say which is black and where it's sort of brownish and where it's kind of merino and where it's white is very slippery.
So it's not really a grey area, it's more like a sort of caramel area, right? It's like everybody's in a mix here. Okay.
But
yeah.
Excuse me, but there is an explanation for that. There is an explanation because in the census of 1976, I believe, we had 100 and something, almost 150 declarations of color in the Brazilian census.
Danielle, let me explain this a little bit for our international audience. So back in 1976, the Brazil Institute of Geography and Statistics actually asked people, how would you describe yourself? They came up with more than 100 different descriptions of their ethnic background or how they would describe themselves in terms of what colour or where they were from. That gives you an idea of how diverse Brazilians think they are. Let me just bring in Malika and the community.
Well, I love that you mentioned that diversity, and also Janice mentioned the sliding scale, because we got this video comment from a Brazilian who echoes that sentiment. So have a listen to this.
Something very important to keep in mind is there's no one-drop rule in Brazil like there is here in the US where I live. So interpretations on identity are in the eye of the beholder. I could walk into a room, 20 people could think of 20 different things of what I am or what I look like. Not necessarily good, or I shouldn't say that. It's not necessarily better, it's just different, okay? And sometimes make things a lot more complicated. So keep that in mind.
So he's referencing the legal principle here in the U.S. in the past that if you had one drop of African blood, you were black. So Ninnis, I'm wondering how you would describe yourself.
Myself, I'm black, of course. But as Janice was talking about, some people think that I'm morena, so kind of a brunette, just to not say that I'm black, because being black is something that it's bad. Something that people like, no, you're not black, you're just almost black. You're
So I'm just looking at, I'm not gonna bore everybody with all of these descriptions. I've got descriptions here. So morena is dark-skinned brunette, not black. So the morena. So is that good or bad or what?
No, it's actually seen as good, because nobody wants to be black, because here in this society, if you are a black person, you are ugly, nobody wants to be black. So we have to understand that all these denominations of this skin tone denomination, it happens because we live in a race society, in a society that denies his history, that denies its roots. So you have to understand that nobody wants to be black, because being black, you are going to be associated to bad things.
All right,
so these people are reproducing racism, saying that.
So I wanted to just jump on that and say one more
ladies,
thing.
one at a time, because you're saying amazing stuff, and I want to really be able to hear it. Jamila, just finish up.
Yes, because if you turn on the television here in Brazil, you think you are in Switzerland. You don't see black actors and actresses. It's only a few numbers. If you open a magazine, so a black child, they don't have models, and so they, of course, they identify with the white domination.
So you have at least 50% of the population who are.
Yes.
I feel stupid saying this, but a deeper, darker brown, at least 50%. And then all kinds of different browns, all the way up to white, okay? But you don't see that as a little a little girl who might be darker brown, like who looks maybe like me, I wouldn't see me on TV.
No. What I was trying to say
no,
with
it's very difficult to
dimension
see a person like you on TV.
Janice.
It's very difficult.
Right.
Okay.
But I don't
What I wanted
believe,
to
but
say
actually
is that-
I don't buy this thought that you don't have black people here in Brazil, that you are mixed. Because when they want to see that you are black, they will see that you are black. They will remember you that you are black.
Yes.
You know? So police know who is black here in Brazil. Television know who is black here in Brazil, because they say this kind of discourse to say, oh, you are mixed, there are no races, but in the time to discriminate, they remember that you are black and that there are black people here in Brazil. So I don't buy this kind of thought
So
that you are.
I agree with that. That's completely, I agree with that, and I wasn't trying to say that wasn't true. It's horrible, and it's distinct. I was only trying to say that because there are so many people that look differently, I think it's an arbitrary line. Obviously, the darker you are, the worse you're treated in Brazil, no doubt. The lighter you are, the more privilege you have, no doubt. But just for the American audience and Europeans to know that a single mother and father can have 7 children, and each of them could be categorized as a different color. Some could be seen as more or less branco, some could be seen as mulatto, some could be seen as morena, and some could be seen as preta or preta.
I'm going to stop you on all of these descriptions because the rest of us around the world are going, okay, so mulatta is a mulatto girl, which means what? Janice?
No, so I would like to explain something.
Yeah.
There is not, when you read that definition, what morena is and what
Yeah.
mulatta is,
Yeah.
it's artificial. And just like everyone's been saying, they're in this country, in Brazil,
Yeah.
you can't say who is what because it bleeds in. So give me one
Except
second.
that people are describing themselves as this, Janice, and I suppose in Brazil you can just
but the
you can describe
darker
yourself
you
however you
are,
want to.
the more discriminated
But I'd
against.
like to
So
emphasize that mulatta is a way to sexualize black women. You know?
All right, we spent half the program describing Brazilians in different colours. This is part of your challenge. All right, we're going to move on. Hold tight, everybody. Let me just hear Daniela. Daniela.
I just would like to reinforce that I brought the census because all the definitions of colors, 100 and something definitions of color, were to describe black people. White people knew they were white. They just declared themselves as white. But black people from different complexions who are declaring themselves anything else less black to don't say they were black.
All right, ladies,
So
we get a great sense of
the
what
point.
the challenges are in terms of race in Brazil, just from a discussion about language. Let's move things on a little bit. Malika?
Well, I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts from the community. So Victoria is hearing what you're saying, and she tweeted in, here, if you look white, you are much better treated than if you are or look black, and that goes along with what someone was saying. But this next tweet, Jamila, this is from Raphael, and he says, our racial inequality is so raging that even discussing racism in Brazil is a taboo. And I kind of sense that just in this conversation where everyone is talking, because it feels like you have a lot to say and you don't really have the outlets to do it. So is discussing racism in everyday conversation a taboo, Jamila?
Yes, in some spaces, yes. Here in the main television, you don't have this kind of discussion. And because of this myth, of the racial democracy myth, people really buy that here in Brazil there is no racism. They say that you overreact, that Brazil racism is only in the United States or in South Africa. And it's very difficult. I write for some blogs and I receive a lot of comments when I write an article saying, oh, racism doesn't exist. Why are you saying that? And I think that people sometimes don't see some actions as racist. They see as a regular part of everyday social interactions. And they do this mainly because of the racial democracy myth that it created this idea that here in Brazil do not have racism. But if you see the numbers here in Brazil, you are 51% of the population, and we are only 6% universities, for example.
Let me show Jamila, let me show our audience a couple of things that might help them understand this a little more. This is a campaign here by the Ministry of Health, which is actually talking about racism in medical care, where sometimes people who are of a darker colour, who are Brazilians, do not get the same treatment, do not get the same care as people who may be lighter skinned as Brazilians. Nenis, can you give us a little example from your life? There's something that happened to you on a train a little while ago that when I was reading about it, I was totally shocked. Can you tell our audience, share that story with us?
Yes, of course. I was going to college and I was going to get the train, but it was at the 6 p.m. is the worst time for you to go everywhere here in São Paulo. And then it was really crowded over there. And I was like, I don't know, like a fish inside a can at the train. And a big guy wanted to go inside. And it was impossible to go through it. And I said, like, no, you can't. It's not going to work. And he said, oh, shut up, you f***ing monkey. I'm not talking to you. And he punched me on my mouth.
And he did
suddenly,
that. So you had no doubt that he was doing that because he saw you as somebody who was of I don't know, a darker colour than he was. How frame this for us?
He was really big and I'm kind of short,
right?
So he took advantage by my size, and also he used like my color to, I don't know, to harm me.
Right.
And
see, this is something that people will recognize in other parts of the world where there is a divide between different colors or different races. Daniela, is this something that Brazilians though are now recognizing and seeing as an issue, or is this just the culture?
It's complicated to say that because, as you see, I am a light-skinned black woman, and I know that for a long time, and people still tell me that I don't suffer racism. And I can tell you 100,000 histories during my whole life about racism. So at the same moment that people in Brazil want to deny racism, they don't allow you to declare yourself as black when you are light-skinned.
How do you hear the denial, Daniela? How do you hear that denial? How do you hear the denial?
For example, in my case, when I was younger and I used to straighten my hair, for example, people used to look at me and say, you are not that white. You have a foot in the slave house. What in Brazil means to remind you that you have someone black on your family, someone that was a slave. Nowadays, that I wear my hair natural, it's my choice. The same people look at me and say, if you straighten your hair, you are not that black. Every time when I leave my home in Brazil.
You can't win, Daniela. And now, are these people that come up to you in the street?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Janice, please do.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, because we have very little time left, instead of going around on this definition and experience, because everyone who goes to Brazil and opens their eyes can see that racism is blatant and there's no doubt about it.
Sure.
The question I want to know is what some of your organizations have done to organize black women or black power, or to try to reclaim by mobilizing in favor of more equality and in favor of recognizing the value of everyone and looking at black people as part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Very good.
Actually, we have several organizations, thousands and thousands of organizations in Brazil fighting against racism in the country and point out racism.
Right.
And most of the laws that we have nowadays in Brazil that are for the black population, they are a result of the struggle of the black population. You are talking at least with 3 activists, and we have, for example, those from Blogueiras Negras, that they are using social media to denounce racism and to show that our media is racist, our country is racist all the time. The thing is, we don't have the tools as, for example, a mainstream media in our favor to help us. But all the other things we are, for example, I cooperate with the first black college in Brazil.
My question was just to tell what you're doing, just all to get on the air what each of you is doing in your organization so that you can.
Let's
give
bring
people
Nenis
hope
here.
and how you're doing.
Nenis, help us out here. Black Women of Brazil is a Facebook site. It's a website as well. Basically, an organization of black bloggers, black women bloggers who are Brazilian. How are you helping the situation in Brazil in terms of getting people to understand the divisions that are there?
So our job, it's like we are a blog, a huge blog, and we have more than 200 black women writing to it. So every day we got a new article, a new text, some new information, and we have the community. We discuss over there, principally black feminism, right? Being focused at black women, of course, and that's how we allow black women to talk about their lives, to talk about racism, to show how media hide us, and all the stuff that we were discussing.
All right, very good. Malika?
Well, you know, the best way to really bring home this point is to share stories, and that's what people online are doing. So this is a Facebook comment we received from someone. This is Johnny, and he says, I booked a 4-star hotel in Ipanema when he was staying in Rio de Janeiro. The staff at the hotel was so disgusted to see a black person, he writes, in such a hotel. People in the area were also convinced that a black person has nothing to do there other than cleaning the street. So that's just one example. But Jamila, I want to pass this next tweet to you. This is Rinan, who says, we have a big black population aside of Brazilian advertisements. We don't see black people on TV commercials. So picking up on what Janice was asking you, do you think that there are inroads into television commercials that could help the representation?
Yes, yes, you have to understand that a racist society creates places, create hierarchy of humanity, and here in Brazil, they want to keep these places. So of course that you fight against that. Of course that you are doing, the black women organizations, for example, are doing a great job here in Brazil, but you have a lot of difficulty to do that. I have a daughter, a 9-year-old daughter, and for me it's very difficult here in Brazil to find toys for her, to find a TV commercial that she can see herself, or a cartoon. All the cartoons that she watches is cartoon from United States, from Canada. Here in Brazil do not have, it's very difficult to find. So you have to understand that here in Brazil we have institutional racism that doesn't allow us to have social mobilities, that are denying all the time our right to be human, to be part of this society. You have to understand that Brazil is a very racist society, a society that creates places and wants to keep us in this place. So the girl that said that she was treated bad in the hotel, it happens all the time. It happens with me when I am in the university. People look at me and say, oh, you study philosophy. Why are you doing here? They look at you with that face, who let these people in, you know?
Jamila?
It's all the time. It's all the time.
Jamila, take a pause for a moment. I think we're hearing a lot of things from Brazil and about Brazil that we don't get to hear very often. So Jamila Ribeiro, Daniela Gomez, Ninas Vieira and Janice Perlman will be coming with us to the post show. If you have questions for them, if you have pushback for them, hashtag AJStream. And remember that you can keep watching on our Stream app as well. All you have to do is download it from iTunes or the Google Store, and you'll also find a couple of amazing stories that we weren't able to fit in today's conversation. You will only find them if you download the app. Meanwhile, on the next show, another topic that's been pitched by our community during our Latin America Open editorial. Yes, there's more. We'll look at how the drop in oil prices is impacting everyday life in Venezuela. That conversation on the next AJ Stream. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Welcome back. We're discussing racial inequality in Brazil, so let's get right back to that conversation. It's very bizarre for me to be calling out different types of skin tone, knowing that in Brazil you talk about race in a very different way if and when you talk about race. I think there's something that's very important for us to talk about, not just about how Brazilians see themselves, but the impact of race on poverty and the connection between those two things. So if you think about the population and the darker elements of the population, is that where you see the poverty being concentrated in Brazil, Daniela?
That's true.
Yeah.
But we cannot forget that even race and class are walking together in Brazil.
Right.
That doesn't mean that a rich person in Brazil that is black is not going to suffer racism. And that doesn't mean that how you are changing your social position, you are not suffering racism. Our soccer players are the example of that. They are suffering racism, and nobody in Brazil is so rich as them. No, any black person in Brazil, and they are still suffering racism.
Right. So, I mean, I like the way that Janice was turning the conversation, because the whole point was, okay, so what are we doing about it? What is Brazil doing about it? Let me bring in Nenis for this. Are you seeing things changing, Nenis?
A little bit, but the big problem with it is because even if with those small changes, the mainstream media, I don't know, it destroy us, everything, because we got like 2, 4, 5, 10 years fighting against racism, and becomes a big television channel and destroy everything that we've done. So it's a eternal fighting, because we walk forward, and then we get back everything. So we need to begin at the same point every time.
How does a TV channel destroy your activism?
For example, we black women, for example, we are not sexual persons only. And we got a television program that is called Sexurias Negras. And it only talked about sex.
Can you translate the title for me? Because when I said it in the newsroom, everybody stopped talking and was staring at me, and obviously my Portuguese accent is not good. Sex and the Black Woman?
Yes, Sex and the
All right, have a look here. Okay, so these women are gorgeous. They're gorgeous, and obviously, if I'm watching just the introduction here, I'm thinking, well, it's obviously about their more intimate part of their life. Am I reading too much into this, just from the trailer here? Nenis?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, she's transfixed by the sexy pictures. Yeah, what's the problem with this show? It's just one show, right?
And it's outrageous. It's like
all right, we've lost. We'll come back to Nenis. So we're not hearing you very clearly, Nenis.
I'm a worker.
All right, I hear the outrage there from Nenis. Let me just.
But I think the most problem, sorry, Fanny,
Yeah.
I think the most problem is because they reduce us only in these possibilities. I think that's the problem.
Right.
I don't have any problem with sensuality, if the woman wants to be sensual. The problem is not that. The problem is that they only see black women in these possibilities. They reduce us to it. Okay. They don't treat us as human beings. If have a lot of possibilities that we can do anything. So you see black women in Brazil on carnival season, dancing samba, naked dancing samba, and that is it. And you want more.
Right.
Now, we are more than that. I think that's the huge problem.
One of the criticisms of the show also was that the women in it were from a specific economic class, only one economic class. And so, in picking up on that, I have this tweet from Daniel who says, in most Brazilian slums, poverty has a color, and that color is black. And Janice, this other one from Victoria, says that money plays a role for schooling, and since a big percentage of black people are poor in Brazil, they end up not being able to get into the best universities. So in your research, because of course you studied this, how do you see class and race intersecting?
Well, number one, there's a definite, let's put it this way, to get into the free universities in Brazil, which are the federal universities, you have to pass a test, the vestibular. And to pass that test, you have to be rich enough to pay for private preparation. And in some favelas, they are doing these free pre-vestibular courses, but it's not the same. So the rich kids, aside from being white and rich, also are getting the opportunity to be prepared to go into these free federal universities. And then they tried to have affirmative action, taking a page from the United States, and they said, okay, let's have set aside a certain percentage of entrances for the public universities for black people. And then everyone signed up and declared they were black, including people who looked every way. And so that didn't work. But I think it's very...
So then they wanted to be black.
Now,
okay. Okay.
Right. So, but now they're coming around and they're saying, okay, let's make it public school. Let's say that a certain percentage of people get into university from public school, which also means dark skin, because they also means poor, and a lot of them from favelas. So that's one thing that's being done. And the other things that people in favelas get discriminated doubly in job interviews, right, because they go for a job and they look dark, it's already suspicious, and then if they give their address as being in a favela, they never get that job. It's very, very difficult.
Do you know what's been really enlightening and informative about this program is that there's an image of Brazil. When you see Brazilians, you see a mixture. We've got Carnival coming up, and you'll see a mixture of every shade of the rainbow, all Brazilians. Where do we get this image of Brazil from, and how come it's not totally accurate? Jazeera, why do you think that is?
Yes, I think here in Brazil, they sold this idea that we are racial democracy society.
Who sold that? Who even came up with that idea?
Yes, we have some sociologists who have worked on that here in Brazil. And this book were being taught in universities. You know, you have a distinguished professor here in Brazil called Gilberto Freire, that he wrote a book that started this idea here in Brazil. And for a long time, people are buying this idea. And Brazil wanted to sell this idea. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that many black people believe them that this is a problem, that this is a huge problem, because the United States and black people knew they had a problem. There was the apartheid, there was the law, black people for this side, white people for that side.
Is it possible, Jamila, that black Brazilians, or whatever description they want to call themselves as, if they don't think they have a problem, they don't have a problem? Is that conceivable for you?
Yeah, this is considerable. Yeah. And another problem is when the government was denying that, they said, well, there is no racism, so you don't need to do anything to include the black population because there is no racism. I'd like to emphasize that it's changing now, this idea here in Brazil. Thanks God it's changing. We have now affirmative actions. All federal universities here in Brazil have codes for black people. You are changing this mentality. And I think the black movement, the work of the black movement, the work of the black women organizations, you are changing slowly, but you are changing that. Now, it's very difficult to a person to deny that you do not have racism here in Brazil. What happened is, racism is something from the past. I think you don't need to be so angry about that. But people here in Brazil need to understand that fight against white privilege is not to fight against white people. We do not hate white people. We want to fight against this inequality. We want to fight against this oppression. You have a problem because the mainstream media here in Brazil don't give space to us. But you are trying. I think the social media are doing an excellent job here in Brazil nowadays you have a lot of sites, a lot of blogs, black women talking about beauty, and some people think that talk about beauty is superficial, and it's for a black woman, it's not.
All right, Jamila, I want to get a quick thought here from the rest of our guests. Janice, hold tight for a second. I want to chat to Daniela and then Nenis, and then I'll come to you. Daniela, so this idea of scratching underneath the surface and seeing what's underneath there, if you describe what was really underneath the surface of this blended nation that we see from the outside, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think Jamila said everything.
Yeah.
Brazil lives under the myth of the racial democracy that was created in the early 20th century by Gilberto Freire. And people still want to deny that. We have half of the population saying affirming they are black. But if we are talking about the real black population in Brazil, it's much more than that.
Right.
But what I used to say is that half of the Brazilian population don't know they are black. And half of those people that know, they still believe there is no racism because they can have a white friend, because they can have a white girlfriend or boyfriend.
But
because,
Daniela, who are you to tell a population that they're not black? Or that they are black?
I am nobody. I declare myself as black, but I believe that 53% of people saying they are black is a change in the reality of my country.
All right, let me bring in Dennis
here. So we have declarations, people saying that.
Yeah.
So that's a mentality that it's also part of the activism that we have in Brazil that was able to create this new perception.
All right, Danielle, take a breath. Janice? We're almost out of time here. Janice, go ahead.
I just wanted to give a little bit of okay, I want to say that in my study of
quickly, Janice, because our audio with you is really bad.
In the last, people in the last study said they were darker than said they were in the 30 years ago.
Yeah.
30 years ago, it was prestigious to look lighter and say you're lighter. Now it's prestigious, part of the roots movement and Africanism, at least in favelas. So people who are the same color are now saying, if they were morena, they're saying mulata. If they're mulata, they're saying preta. So there is a kind of black pride movement.
And preto means black, right?
Favelas in Rio, in that self-definition.
All right, preto means black? All right, I'm going to say yes. Tweet me if I'm wrong. All right, Nenis, give us the last sentence here. What's the one thing you want us to remember as watching this as outsiders?
I think that people outside need to reinforce that racism exists here. It's because mainstream media shows that no, but yes, and we live it every day, every hour, every minute, and we suffer, and we're being killed, we're being murdered by police, the government. That's all I need to say, I guess. Thank you very much.
We really appreciate it, and thank you for bearing with us, audience, with the spotty audio coming in and out. We're going all the way from DC to Brazil and around the world. Malika.
All right, we'll give the last word to Nicole, who is ending it on a slightly positive note. She says integration has improved in the last decade, but the prejudice still exists deeply, which I think we saw evidence of in our show today.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to move on, but on Monday, we're also talking about an idea that came from our Latin American community. We're looking at oil prices. They're the lowest they've been since 2009. But this drop is having a huge impact on life in Venezuela. How big an impact? We'll find out on Monday's AJ stream. Until then, see you online. Thanks for watching.